Hello everyone, we are here once again in the sunny South Florida to show you step by step how to put it together, your new Panel-Saw Titanium BMT.3200.IR from Maksiwa.
You received your BMT in two crates. The larger crate will contain the main table base and the longer crate will contain the sliding table. Unbox your machine using a hammer and a crowbar. Carefully unwrap it and make enough room for yourself so you can lay out the parts that you'll be installing. Using a forklift, lift the base of the BMT up in the air and slide out the pallet. Place the machine in your preferred location and start assembling with the tools provided in the toolbox. Take note that some parts are located inside the toolbox, such as handles and small hardware. Install the rib fence. Remove the first two nuts on the rib fence bar. Then, line it up and mount it to the holes on the main table. Install the nuts from behind. Once you verify the bar is leveled, go ahead and tighten the nuts with a 30mm wrench. Next, we will unpack and install the rear extension table. Take note that the leveling screws for the rear and side extension table are located in this packet. Remove the third rib fence bar nut and the Allen bolts to mount the table. Line up your bolt holes and start the bolts. Before tightening the main Allen bolts, prepare to mount the leveling screws. This will help you adjust the table up so that it's leveled. Adjust the leveling screws until the rear table is leveled. Make the final adjustments to the table. The side extension table must be flushed on the side and on the top of the main table. First, adjust the left side. Make sure your rib fence bar and extension table are aligned. Then, tighten the remaining nuts and bolts. To install the rib fence scale, remove the bolts from their container. You will see 3 Allen bolts, 1 washer and 1 nut. Align the scale and thread the first 2 bolts. The last bolt will require a nut and a washer. Then, tighten everything down. Now, attach your hardware to the rib fence assembly and mount your lock handles. Slide the rib fence assembly to the rib fence bar. Make sure that the center C-clamp is aligned. Work back and forward until it slides in. Mount the stops on the ends of the rib fence bar. Before installing the rib fence, take note there is a stopper on one side. Lift the sliding assembly and insert the fence. Check for alignment. If you notice that your fence needs to be adjusted, you may do this by rotating the spacers behind the fence. Once you have adjusted, slide back and forward to make sure it's not binding anywhere. If necessary, repeat the process. Install the side extension table. First, remove the bolts that attach to the main table. To make the job easier, you can insert the leveling screws to the main table until they are flush. Make sure that they do not protrude. Mount the table and adjust it until the top is flush. If necessary, adjust the leveling screws until the table is leveled. To install the overhead blade guard, you will need to mount the parts shown. Remove the nuts and washers to the assembly support. Then, mount the long assembly part and install the washers and nuts. Before tightening, adjust the leveling bolt until the piece is on the correct place. Mount the vertical tubing to the lower horizontal bar. Then, mount the support brackets that attach to the rear extension table and the vertical tube. Next, we will install the following parts. Mount the upper horizontal bar, loosen the rear adjustment screw and slide the bar through the tubing. Next part, we will mount the rear dust collection port and accessories. Last, we will assemble the blade guard protector. Adjust the bracket and line it up with the horizontal tubing and thread the bolts. Once you have this done, align the shock and tighten the lock nut. Mount the hose and tighten the clamps. Unbox the sliding table and remove all hardware located in the crate. When you're mounting, make sure the locking mechanism is on the side where the control panel is located. Once the table is mounted, you can slide the entire assembly until the sliding table reference bolt meets the main table assembly. To secure the sliding table to the main table, we need to slide the mounting bolts underneath the sliding table. You will need two 4x4s to hold the table until you can line up the mounting bolts. Once your bolts are lined, you can lower one side at a time until the sliding table sits flush on the main table. Open up the left access panel to install the nut. Then, move to the right side of the machine and open the right access panel. Once the other nuts are installed, you can slide the table to one side and you will have access to the center mounting bolt. Before tightening the sliding table, make sure that the sliding table is touching the alignment bolts on the main table. Also, make sure that the sliding table reference bolts is making contact with the side of the main table. To install the main blade, loosen the nut clockwise. Remove the flange. Then, mount a 30mm blade and install the flange back along with the nut. To tighten the nut, use a T-bar tool to lock the blade in place. Then, with the blade wrench, tighten the nut. To install the riving blade, first lose the nut of the riding blade bracket. Then slide the riding blade in between the spacers until desired height. Keep a 3 mm gap between the saw blade and the riving blade to finally tighten the nut. Remove the 4 bolts on the control panel side of the sliding table. Then, lock the table in place and remove the lock handle. This will allow us to mount the sliding table handle. Take note that there are 2 Allen bolts on the sliding table handle that needs to be removed before installing. Line up the holes and insert the bolts. Mount the lock handle again and unlock the table to allow access to the remaining bolt holes underneath. Once all bolts are in the correct position, you can tighten everything up. To mount the panel support table, install the handle clamp through the hole and slide the assembly into the side of the slot sliding table. At the same time, move the lower swing arm and line up with the bottom hole of the panel support table. Lay your hardware out to mount the panel support bar. Slide the flange through the slot on the support bar itself. Then, line up the flanges with the holes on the support table and insert the threaded handles. Take note that each handle has 1 washer. Put the crosscut fence in place, and the first thing to install is the extension lock handle. First, 2 nuts threaded on the handle and a washer at the end. Screw the handle in and lower the first nut, then the backing nut to the cross fence support and adjust accordingly. Remove the plastic piece at the end of the crosscut fence. Then, slide the alignment hardware through the slot on the fence. First the square block, then the center miter bolt, and last, the end fence pivot screw. Mount the plastic piece back on. Line up the brackets with the holes where they will sit, then flip the fence over. The center miter bracket has a plastic guide that has to be installed from the underside of the miter bar. Once in place, use the long handles and a washer to fasten both, the center miter bolt and the pivot bolt. Before tightening up any of the handles, align the block with the bracket and the alignment bolt of the panel support table. Make sure that the plastic block sits at the very edge flushed with the sliding table. Then you can tighten the handles and install the square block handle. Once everything is aligned, you may tighten the set of screws on each of the brackets. At this point, the table is pre-adjusted and will cut square. Make any final adjustments. Check for any screws that might have been left loose during installation. Mount the final accessories.
Now, your machine is entirely set up and ready to use. If you have any questions, contact our customer service. They are ready to assist you with any questions you may have. Maksiwa, helping woodworkers realize their dreams.